morning, everyone. Happy Monday, and welcome to today's episode of the Girls in Property podcast. So, this morning, I am joined by the wonderful Abby Clarke. Hi, Abby.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm so happy to get you on. At the moment, the lineup of women that I'm able to get on this podcast, I am so thrilled by because everyone is such an inspirational person within their world and in the property game, and you are one of those. So I'm so happy to have you on. It's an absolute pleasure.
No, thank you so much. I think it's so nice to even just sit down with you for the first time properly and have a conversation.
Yeah, so I don't know if listeners can relate to this. I'm sure they can. You know, when you've been speaking to people on Instagram for what feels like 100 years, and you DM and you voice note, but you've never actually met before. And then suddenly you're like, oh, let's do this. And then we're literally meeting properly for the first time on this podcast.
Literally. But it feels like I've met you before as well. That's what's crazy.
And it is crazy. It literally is crazy. And I'm sure we'll meet in person one day and be like, oh, there you are. You're an actual person.
Not real. You're not an AI character.
Yeah, it's mad though. But I have that with so many people on Instagram. I call them Instagram friends, but they're like proper friends. I have so many of them who I've never met in person. So
that is the best part, but that is the power of social media as well.
That is the power of social media. So, Abby, could you please, for listeners who don't know you, could you please introduce yourself? Tell us what you're currently up to in your life and world, and tell us about your different brands that you've got and also some of the property bits you've got going on as well.
Of course. So I'm Abby, Abigail, but you can call me Abby. We discussed that before. I'm the founder of Aventus Agency, which is a social media agency where we do paid marketing, content, all organic marketing and influencer marketing for brands. I've also got the mentorship program, which is launching for the New Era Accelerator. That trains brands how to do it themselves. So we've got the done for you and the done with you methods. I've also got the New Era podcast where I sit down and interview successful entrepreneurs and their journeys. I own a gymwear brand called Gym Law, which I'm wearing today. And I'm also in the process of launching New Era Property, which is going to be assisted sales and deal sourcing. So there's a lot on at the moment. Loving the journey. But yeah, ask me anything and I'll open up.
Love it, absolutely love it. And you know what? We were speaking about this just before we came on the podcast, and I think you're one of those people where people say to me all the time, and I don't know if you have it. They say to me, "God, you do so much. Where do you actually take a breath and take some time to just unwind?" And usually the answer is, I don't really do that. But I think you actually are doing more than I am. And if I'm busy, I don't even you must just not sleep.
You know what? I think what I've done is everything's always happened for a reason when I look at my journey. So I've never had a plan for anything. With the gymwear brand, I never had a plan for that. I literally was in the gym and I was like to my dad, I want to start something. And he was like, okay, a gymwear brand. And within 3 months, I launched a gymwear brand and was doing shoots. Then when I started the agency, that was because it was COVID and the stock was stuck at customs. Then when I look at property, it's kind of fell into place when I got this house that I'm in now. And I looked at the agency and thought, well, I can use that to gather leads. Everything's kind of been a puzzle that I've pieced together. So yeah, there's never really been a massive plan for it all.
But you know what? That is where the best creativity sparks from, is where there is no almost plan. And when people say things like, there are two different types of looking at things in the world. You can either try and perfect yourself and then say, right, now I'm going to go out and launch it to the world. Yeah. Or you can literally dive straight in and go, I don't really have a clue what I'm doing, but I'm just going to give it a go. And it's like when we started the podcast and I was like, I don't know how to start a podcast. I don't know how to do this. And you kind of just give it a go and you just learn and grow and meet people along the way and be inspired by people. And it's the way of life. I'm a big believer in law of attraction in the universe, and things come to you at the right time when they're meant to. So I love that you just said that, and that you're like, look, there's no crazy mathematical equation behind it. You just start and off you go.
Honestly, there isn't. And I think that's the issue. People think that they need to have everything figured out when they go into business, and they don't. No one's got it figured out. And even if you think you have got it figured out, everything's going to change along that way. I remember my first episode I filmed of my podcast. I sat down and I was like, I have no idea how to start this, really. I had an intro, but I was thinking, this feels cringy. Is this right? But you question it. And when I look back now, a year ago, and think, if I wouldn't have started that, I wouldn't have met you today.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy.
Well, this was the thing. So I mentioned on one of my podcasts, which was the podcast I did with my mum, and for all the seasoned listeners who listen to all the episodes will know the episode I'm talking about, which is the one that I invited my mum on. And I said on that episode, I dedicate this episode to Abby Clarke,
No.
who gave me the idea, because you, of course, got your dad on the New Era podcast. And I, of course, listened to your podcast, and I went, "Do you know what? It gave me so much more insight into you as a person." And
Yeah.
I thought, oh, I mean, it's always interesting when you get your parent on because you never quite know what's going to happen. But I thought, yeah, let's get mum on. That's a good idea.
Yeah, but it's so nice as well because you're right, it gives people an insight into you and who you are. And I think you'll be more yourself on that podcast than any other podcast because you're comfortable and it's your mum. Like, that's what I was like with my dad. I thought, he's either going to make me cry through all of this. And he was more nervous than I was. He's like, I can't watch it because I was so nervous.
But isn't that lovely? And that's literally how we met. I remember I messaged you and I was like, hey, just to let you know, I was really inspired by this. Do
Yeah.
you mind basics? I always ask, I'm like, do you mind if I sort of take inspiration, kind of, say that this is dedicated to you and I'm going to get my mum on? And that's how the conversation started, wasn't it?
I loved it, honestly. When you messaged me, I was like, this is the best thing ever. I was buzzing with that. So I'm so proud of you for doing that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Do you know, we could literally talk all day, but I feel like the podcast would go on for 100 years. So let's crack straight on. So could you please, so you've already introduced yourself, which is fabulous. That's great. Could you please now tell us about something that you are celebrating? Always a good way to start.
Okay, so celebrating. Now, this is definitely a downfall of mine because I feel like I don't celebrate enough. So if I was to sit here and say, what am I celebrating right now? Do you know what? No, there's two things. There's two things. So I'm celebrating the house because if I wouldn't have obviously got this house, I wouldn't have even known what an assisted sale was to then obviously open up this new company. So I'm celebrating the fact that new doors are opening, new opportunities from that. And I'm also celebrating that my brother's just announced that he's going to be a dad and he's having a baby.
Oh, wow. That's huge news. Oh, my
No,
goodness.
I'm buzzing about that. And by the time this episode comes out, it'll be open to the world. So.
Yay. Oh, I'm so happy for you. So you're an auntie. Well, you're going to be an auntie.
Yes.
Is it your first time being an auntie?
It is my first time, but I do have a funny story. So when my dad, I've got an 8-year-old brother, and when he was born, my dad texted me and went, "You're finally an auntie." I thought, "No, Dad, I'm finally a sister." And he went, "That's how long this labour's been."
I love that.
But yeah, it's going to be
That, do you know what? I love that piece of celebration. That is so wonderful. And do you know what? You've just touched on something that I'm actually going to be speaking about for my celebration. So I'm going to mix mine up a little bit because obviously I do a celebration every week, which I'm sure the listeners are very bored of. So it was really it was really interesting this week where I had a conversation with someone actually. Shout out to Carly Koo. And I was talking to her about the Girls in Property retreat, which is in April. And I was sort of speaking to her in a very, very flippant way, almost like matter of fact kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Carly's wonderful. And Carly was like, "Can I help you with the retreat? Like, what do you need?" I was like, "No, everything's all right." She's like, "Do you need me to sell more tickets for you?" And I was like, "No, I'm okay, actually. There's only 4 left." She was
Yeah.
like, "What?" I was like, "There's literally 4 tickets left and I can't increase the numbers because of the venue capacity." She's like, "So you've basically sold out your event?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Hello." And it was really interesting. She said to me a really good question. She was like, "Are you not really proud of yourself? Are you not like going to celebrate that? Are you not?" Because I spoke in such a matter of fact way.
Yeah.
And I said to her, "Carly, I don't have time to celebrate right now. I'll celebrate when I'm sat in the room and there's 75 women in this room and I look around the room and I take a moment to myself to celebrate." And
Yeah.
she's like, "No, you need to celebrate now." And I thought, and do you know what's so sad? And this is literally what you just said, and I'm sure listeners can relate to this, was there is so much going on in a day-to-day basis that it's very easy for me to come on a podcast every single week and say, "I'm celebrating this, I'm celebrating this." But as many listeners will probably resonate with, it's very easy to say something out loud and to say, "I'm celebrating this and I'm celebrating this." And there are so many mini celebrations that I could talk to you about right now with my flat and with the businesses and with the mentoring. There are thousands of celebrations happening. But when you truthfully sit on your own and sit quietly, do you actually celebrate?
But you know what? That's that. First of all, congratulations, because that is absolutely massive.
Oh,
That's
thank you.
insane. We'll celebrate that. But you know what? When I'm on my own, I think that's when I start to reflect. But Yeah, it's a big one that I actually posted on my story the other day that I sat down with someone. Actually, it was a stranger in the gym. They were talking about memories, and this is celebrations, it is. They were saying, don't look back on the entire year from December to like December. They were like, look back on random days throughout the month, like your camera roll, and see what you were doing this time last year. And I was like, I never do that. And I looked, and that's when I'd seen that I'd started filming the podcast, and I posted it on my story, and I thought, that's what we need to start doing, looking back at random days when you're on your own, when you're reflecting, just see where you were a year ago, because that is something to celebrate, because you will have come so far without even realizing it.
Do you know, it's absolutely madness, and I don't know if you're a similar person to me in this. I find it really, really easy as a friend and as a mentor to say to other people, like, be proud of yourself, like, look how far you've come, you've achieved so many things. But
Yeah.
it's very difficult to almost truthfully say that to yourself, to be
Oh,
like, look how far as a person you've come, like, look at yourself. And it's like, it's so much easier to almost deflect
oh,
onto other people. Do you know what I mean?
that was my big thing with my agency. So whenever we'd go to like team events or networking events, I'd always introduce myself and the team, and I'd always then start bigging the team up, and people would be like, "So tell me about you." And I'd be like, I am with the team. Do you know, I'd always like reflect the situation onto them. And I don't know what it is about business owners, but we do. And I don't necessarily think it's a negative trait, but I think it's something we need to pay attention to. We need to be more self aware about stuff like that, because without us, the businesses wouldn't be there.
No, exactly, and it's definitely something that we're always learning and growing. I'm massive for self development and
Yeah.
growth and things, and I think it's so interesting to be like, like that's something I really want to try and do, is to try and slow down and be like, let's just take a moment to look back, because I'm sure if I actually went through my camera roll and looked at where I was a year ago, I would almost go, oh wow, okay, all
Yeah.
that is different.
Honestly,
So
it's being present. Like it is being present with what you've achieved, and like in that moment. I think when you're moving so fast, you miss things, and you miss things that other people would be like, "This is huge." I
yeah,
remember when I got the keys to this house, I was like, "Right, I'll do upstairs, and then I'll do downstairs." The next minute, the whole thing was ripped out, and I was like, "Right." Everyone was saying, "You don't need to do it all at once. Don't like put too much pressure on yourself." And I was like, "I can do this." And then I just started doing it and thought, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?" Um, but if I look now, I think, do you know what? I did that. Like I've achieved this. But I'm
yeah.
only sitting here now and saying I've achieved this. Because otherwise I'd have waited until it was done, valued, sold, and then I'd go, I did that. As opposed to now that what's been done.
I love that. And do you know what? That's kind of what I want to finish this little mini bit of celebrations about, is I want the listeners, I'd love you all to sort of, as you're listening to this, sit there and really reflect on your own achievements that you have done and celebrations, because it's very easy, as I said, like week on week, for us to come on and be like, what are you celebrating? Tell us about this, tell us about this. But to actually truthfully sit quietly and actually look back and reflect on how far you've come, I would like to give everybody that opportunity and action step for this week to really sit and be proud of yourself. And please DM me and let me know what it is that you are proud of and celebrating this week. I would love to hear from you. So thank you so much. Perfect. So, Abby, let's crack straight on. So, first of all, let's talk about your house that you're currently in. So, talk to us about that. What's going on? You bought it? Are we just talking, about the whole valuation thing going on? What's happening?
Oh, it's been a whirlwind. So when I got this house, my plan was to live in it. It was my first house. I thought I'll move in and make it a home. I was like, I'll just do upstairs, then I'll do downstairs. And literally within day one, everything was ripped out of this house. I had no kitchen and I had no bathroom. And literally everything was just ripped out. And my dad, the day before, had ripped his bicep off his arm. So he came and I was like, I know you're in pain, just leave it, we'll be fine. He did so much with one arm and he was like, no, I'm going to do this with you. So we basically worked on the project together and built the build team out, but tried to do as much as we could ourselves in the beginning. And he also did all the plumbing, bless him, with one arm. He's never
With
plumbed
one
with
arm. Oh
one
my
arm.
goodness.
He was like doing the pipes under the floor. And I was like, I don't think this is safe. The doctor would not be happy with this. But yeah, so the plan
Super dad.
honestly, he's amazing. Like I am so grateful for everything with him. But it's been a journey with everything. I had a plaster that came in that was a disaster. I had a spark that was an absolute nightmare. Yeah, been a journey. But the plan now with the property is I think I'm going to stay here for a year. I'm then going to remortgage it, move on. and get another one. I think that's my plan.
Okay, perfect. So the whole sort of buy, refurbish, rent, refinance effectively. So you're going to put somebody else in it and then refinance
I think so, or I'm gonna. I
or
haven't
flip.
made my mind up, yeah, because the flip's so good. I mentioned earlier, obviously,
Yeah.
I've added 110,000 in value onto the property and only put 30 into it. I'm like, I didn't even realize it was such a good deal when I got it.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's absolutely incredible. It's really, really good. And do you know one thing I'm personally finding at the moment? So I've got my own mini project going on where
Yeah,
I have a one bedroom flat, and it's really, really interesting. We've been looking with the agents and with the build team whether to turn it into a 2 bed or a 3 bed.
see if it's a
Um,
good story.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. It's so interesting, and the whole conversation is actually sometimes bigger isn't always better
Yeah,
because of the layout, the flow. Is a third bedroom needed? And what I'm finding is almost I'm quite fascinated by the agent's valuation
yeah,
almost, because when they came back and they were like, well, a two like the 1 bed it'd be 190, for the 2 bed it'd be 260. I was like, where are you getting these figures from? I was like, talk to me. And then she's fantastic. She's like an amazing agent. She was showing me comparables and things, and they were coming in about sort of the 240 mark, that type of thing. So
yeah,
whenever an agent gives a valuation, for me personally, and this is all agents in my eyes, because you can only win from the situation by doing this. I
yeah,
always try and reduce by about 15%, 20% based on what they're saying when
yeah,
I personally do my numbers, because they'll give the ceiling price, but that doesn't always mean that that's what's achievable with the lender or the sale,
yeah.
things like that. So your one's really fascinating that they came in and were like, yeah, you've added an extra 110,000. I'm like, wow,
They were like, if you look at anywhere on the world right now, there are no properties like mine. And I don't even know how I did it. When I designed it, everything is cohesive throughout, but unintentionally. So even though, like, with your bathroom, with the kitchen, everything matches, and they were like, it's a first time buyer's home dream. So they'd said 335, and then they said downstairs, if I had a media wall, that'll increase it again. So I was like, I'll just add a media wall as well. So
wow. But you know what? Having that information that you were able to say, okay, how can I add value to
yeah,
this? And them to say, well, if you do this, this is what will add value.
yeah,
That is key. Like, I know to us, it might sound like a really simple thing to do, to go and get advice before you start building. But so
yeah,
many people actually don't even know to do that. They just start and just do it blindly. So
yeah,
speaking to agents, getting your power team, I think is a great way to do it. And
yeah.
I love the fact you had problems with your sparkies and things. Like, I'm like, yes, life, we're all in it together.
Honestly, you know what? I've had problems with every single person that's been referred over to me, but everyone that
Ooh,
I'd sourced independently has been perfect. My painter, a dream, a dream. Like, I would just paint houses for a living and start a business with him. He was that good. Like,
wow.
everyone that was a referral was a nightmare, and everyone that's referred someone over has gone, I'd never refer anyone to you again.
Really? That's so interesting that that's been the way that that's happened for you.
And that, literally a nightmare, like a nightmare.
Wow. Okay, so no referrals then. No more. Do not refer to Abby.
Honestly, I felt bad, but like, I think because I did so much as well, and it's just trying to. I didn't have a clue what I was doing when I got it. I didn't know how to piece the puzzle together. So I was like, right, you need to rewire, then plaster. I was thinking, how on earth do you do this? But I actually sat down with one of the girls at one of the networking events the other day, and she was like, how did you know how to piece it together? I said, I don't really know. I said, I genuinely sat there and just figured it out. And I remember writing it on my notes, going, well, that must come after this.
Really? So you didn't have a project manager. You just went in on your own and went, yeah, I
Yeah,
think I'll
I'm
get,
doing
you know.
myself. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well done you. Like, that should be celebrated. Confidence in yourself that you had the ability, because that is self-belief right there, to say,
Yeah.
no, I can do this. Okay, you physically had to get a painter and a plumber, but you knew who to call in the right order, and knew to paint before putting the carpets down and simple things. So
Yeah, to be fair, my plumber did help as well. He said, "Don't get your carpets down on your stairs until I've done that bathroom." So I was like, "Right, okay."
but that's what it's all about. That
Yeah,
is literally what it's all about. So are you nearly finished? Like, where is the project at?
it'll be done in the next 2 weeks. It's completely done in 2 weeks.
Wow, I'm so excited to see it.
Excited as well.
Yeah, so excited. And how long has the project sort of taken, the whole renovation?
Yeah, so it was meant to take 12 weeks. Then I went to Dubai, so that's my own fault. So it's taken 16 weeks in total.
Yeah, but you went to Dubai. You're okay. I would choose Dubai.
Literally, my dad was like, "Are you really doing this?" And I was like, "I need to go meet with investors. It will make sense when I come back."
Yes, true, true. And oh my God, Dubai must be full of investors, full of opportunity, everything like that.
It's another world. It
Yeah.
genuinely is another world. I was more impressed at the fact someone would pick my washing up, bring it back ironed on a scooter in seconds. I was like, no, this is more impressive than any opportunity in Dubai.
I love that. I love how your mind works. You're like, yes, efficiency. This is great.
Literally.
Oh, I was so jealous. I miss the sunshine. I need some sunshine. It's too dark here. It's too wintry. I'm sure everyone listening to this is like, yes, Athena, we all need some sunshine. So bring on the
Honestly.
sun. Spring is coming, guys. It will be okay. We're nearly there. We're so close. Like the days are getting longer. It'll be absolutely fine. But tell us a little bit then about, you mentioned, of course, the word assisted sale.
Yes.
Now, for some people, they're like, Abby, what are you talking about? What is an assisted sale? And actually, in the whole time we've done this podcast, or I've done this podcast, we've never spoken about an assisted sale.
Yeah.
So, could you please give us, for anyone who has no idea what it is you're referring to, please let them know what an assisted sale is.
Yeah, so basically, an assisted sale is a no money down deal. So we basically go into a property that someone else owns. It might be ideally no chain, and ideally they don't live there. So we go into that property, we agree on a figure. Say they want 200,000 for that property. We'll agree, okay, we'll pay you out 200,000 on the grounds that we come in, we flip that property, and then we take the profits at the end of that deal when we sell it. Now we then work with agents directly to make sure that we sell that. Now, I've pieced my agency together with that to ensure that when we work with agents, we can use my agency to bring in leads for the assisted sales process. And secondly, we can make sure that we can market it correctly as well. So the end goal is to not actually have to work directly with agents. I would like to have my own agency where I can train that team up and then have, I just feel like agents aren't incentivized enough around here. And I think we can definitely incentivize more. But yeah, assisted sales, we go in, flip the property, and you can either use an investor to upfront the cost of the renovation, and then you can split the profits with the investor at the end as well. Or you can act as the investor. Or another way you can do it is work with a build team, and the build team can actually act as the investor as well, and then you just split the profits there at the end.
Fantastic. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions about that, just based on what you said. But I love this strategy. I think it's a really great strategy. So with this one, from what I'm understanding from you, you don't actually ever physically own the property. You control the asset
Yeah,
effectively, because you never actually do the purchase with the person you're buying from.
yeah.
You effectively are saying to them, look, you need to sell it. We'll come in, we'll make it even nicer for you, we'll give the uplift, and then we'll actually split it in the profits, and we'll take this and you take the rest
Yeah,
effectively.
literally just that. So obviously there's more risk to it because you don't own that property. So I've actually worked directly with the solicitors that helped me with my house. They were amazing. They were so quick, and they're going to help with obviously the charges on the property and everything. Yeah, I think it's a strategy that people avoid because it sounds more complicated in comparison to say going to get a property yourself. But obviously, when you get a property yourself, the costs incurred are so much higher than when you don't. So it is. I feel like it's an untapped strategy that there's so much potential there.
It's like most things, isn't it? It's when somebody doesn't understand something, they run a mile. And so you almost have to break through that initial barrier of trying to even explain to someone
Yeah,
almost the concept of an assisted sale to them,
yeah,
to then get them to agree to it. So it's quite a tricky one, I think. I've tried it a few times, and for me personally, it's never quite gone through to fruition, because the agent, either something happens or that it goes down a traditional route, and lots of things happen. But I've definitely pitched it quite a few times, and it's been fun to do, definitely.
yeah. See, we're working directly with agents now. So I've basically built out the list of agents I'd want to work with on the Wirral and Liverpool, and we're working directly and we agreed an increase in the fee based on selling directly with them. And we also agreed a fee of if they were to refer properties over, they get paid out a fee once we close that deal. Because they don't want to be selling properties that look ugly, do they? They want to be selling
No.
properties that look nice and they'll sell quick. So they know they'll make more money anyway by referring properties over to us, and they'll be able to sell them quicker once they look nice.
That's what I said. I remember when I spoke to the agent, and the agent tried to say to me, I remember I had this conversation, it was some time ago, it wasn't recent, and they said, well, why we're going to be missing out on our fees, because if you basically take it on and then do it up, we're only going to get our payment once.
Yeah,
Whereas, for example, if somebody was to take it on and we just sell it as is, and
Yeah.
then someone goes in and flips it, we then get paid twice. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, what's your fee going to be? If you're going to do it twice, what's the percentage? And then they
Yeah.
told me, and I was like, all right, well, I'll add an extra to that. Now are you interested? So
Yeah.
you kind of got to have a bit of banter with the agent and be like, well, let's work together. Let's come up with something. You've got to incentivize them.
Definitely. It's
Um,
building that relationship, isn't it? And just, I think once you've built that relationship, you can get past loopholes. But also that second flip, they might not decide to sell with them. They could decide to go with someone else. So it's saying you're
exactly.
relying on that fee, but that doesn't mean that you're actually going to get that fee.
So true. So,
Yeah.
so true. Absolutely. The
Mm.
ones that I've tried it on personally, and I don't know what your opinion about this is, and I'll be open to your opinion, is I've tried it quite a few times on probate properties.
Yeah.
And a probate property, just so that listeners know, that's when a person has died in the property. And then it goes to sort of usually the next of kin, and they try and sell it.
Yeah.
Obviously, probate has to be granted, so we've got that whole conversation going on. But I found that those tend to work quite well because usually people just want as much money as they can out of the property, so it can
Yeah.
work quite good as a conversation. Have you ever thought that or tried that? What's your opinion?
Yeah, so that's actually what we're targeting. So that is the aim of them properties, because ideally we don't want to have to move anyone out the properties and then have to pay for, say, their rent and things. Ideally, if no one is in the property, that is the best solution, because you don't want that vendor coming back to the property either. They've got too much emotion held to it, or they'll come back and say, actually, I don't want to sell, I love it, we want to move in. So ideally a probate property or even a distressed seller, that's like your ideal situation.
Perfect. Oh, good. I'm glad I'm on the right course of action with my thought process. That's good. That's always a
Yeah.
helpful thing.
I had it though. So when I got this house, there was a man stood outside the window, and I had neighbours coming like past all the time asking to come in and have a look. But he was stood there just like dead sheepish. And I opened the window and I was like, "You okay?" He was like, "Yeah, yeah." I went, "Do you want to come and have a look?" And he was like, "No, no." And then he just stayed there. So I went outside and I was like, "Is everything okay?" And he went, "Yeah, this was my mum and dad's house." And I thought, oh, I felt awful because
Oh, yeah.
completely like ripped apart, and he'd obviously thought, I don't know what he thought, but I just felt awful then. So I thought that is why people don't come back to the properties, because they do have so much emotional attachment to them.
Oh my goodness. Oh, bless him. Oh, I wonder if there was something spooky going on where maybe he could see his parents.
Oh, don't tell me that. At night.
Oh,
Yeah,
that is. I mean, don't get me wrong. If there was a random guy, like literally outside my house, I would find it a bit odd. But bless him.
I know. The fact I went out, are you all right?
Yeah, can I help you?
I know.
Politely saying, can I help you? Please leave.
I know. I was like, oh, you won't want to come in then, will you?
Yeah, no, no, no. Imagine if he'd have said, yes, please, can I come in? What would you have done?
Do you know what? The amount of people that have been in and out of this house anyway, you'd think most women would be like, no, no, stay out the house. I'm like, you coming in? I've got a cup of tea.
Listen, I'm coming over. If you've got a cup of tea ready for me, I am there.
I'm saying that, I'll be totally honest. I don't even know where the kettle is in this house right now.
Fair enough. I don't blame you. The fact you're still literally doing this podcast, bless you, whilst you got this renovation going on, like I take my hat off to you
I
because it's
know.
so
Well,
peaceful.
I did have an office, didn't I? And I've just handed the keys back to my office. So originally I had all my team in house, and now my entire team's remote. Handed the keys back, and I was like, I actually don't have anywhere quiet to do this house. So my painter is downstairs right now painting, and I was like, do you mind just turning your radio off?
Wow. But you know what? That's why I wanted to get you on the podcast because that's what this podcast is all about. Real life women like
Yeah.
doing it, proving it, doing it for all of us. Like, I love that. I love your like fact. You're like, my painter is literally downstairs. You know what I mean?
Turn Michael Jackson off for me.
No, keep Michael Jackson on. Love it. So
And
whilst we've got all of these things going on, so we've obviously got, the assisted sale aspect and you're starting. And by the way, I love the fact that you, once again, prove the fact that you saw an opportunity in business. So I'd just like to touch on that. You've got all these other businesses that you're doing, and yet your brain works in exactly the same way to say, hold on, I can see an opportunity here with starting an assisted sale business. And I love that word opportunity because I feel that people who really do well in life are the people who say yes to majority of things within reason, but people who see opportunity. And I see you as one of those people who has an open mind and an open soul to it almost. So
yeah, I
I
think
love that.
I'm not afraid to fail at things in the slightest, but I think that's what I want to try and teach people. And like, you're only going to learn when you do something wrong. And if I can do it, I'm just a normal girl. Like I am, there's nothing special where I'm like, I've got this, I've got that. I just see something and go, all right, we'll figure it out along the way. And if everyone just did that and took that approach, they figure so much out about themselves as well. Like it wasn't until I did this house that I realised I'm actually really passionate about property. And I thought, I've really enjoyed this entire journey. And my mum was like, well, what about the agency? It's like, okay, well, I don't need to let the agency go, but I can look at scaling the agency, outsourcing the team, and then interlinking that into the property company. And she was like, you should blow my mind, don't even talk to me.
Yeah, but you know what? That's what it's all about. It's all about building it and then leveraging out the team,
Yeah.
so that the whole point is, I think, for me, is where you have a true business is where the business can run without you.
Yes.
That's where I think
Yeah.
the gem is. So
Yeah.
if you've got now a team that runs that business without you, like, again, fabulous, like, well done. That is something to be celebrated. And then the fact that you're then able to concentrate on building another business and then integrating it is even more impressive. So yeah, like I said, like, I meet so many incredible women who are just doing inspirational things and thinking outside the box. So, and again, one point you just made, which is so important, because I think sometimes when listeners can listen to this, they're like, oh well, it's easy for them, or they probably had this and they probably had that, and all this help along the way. And it's like, no, we just have an idea and we just go for it. That's what you
Honestly,
have to do. You just got to go for it.
yeah, do you know, I actually spoke. So I went and did an event for sixth formers the other day, and it was with 15, no, 12 to 15 young girls. They were sat around the table, and not one of them had an idea about business. All of them wanted these corporate jobs. And I said to them, I was like, does anyone want to start their own business? And a few of them were like, I've thought about it, but we haven't got any money. And I was like, that's the thing. People assume that you either need to know everything or you need capital to start. And you don't. Like, I didn't come from any capital. My mum and dad both worked jobs in the NHS. None of them were entrepreneurial at all. I think my dad would be a really good entrepreneur if he went for it. I'm going to say my mum as well, because she'll listen to this and go, why would I not be? But I haven't got any entrepreneurs in the family, so you don't need to come from that entrepreneurial background to have an idea. You don't need to know people, because you can meet people along the way. It's just all networking as well.
Absolutely. And do you know what? I'm so glad you just touched on that. So I was at, I run the Dorset Property Network, which was on last night, and I was talking to two women at that event.
Yeah.
And this is actually something that's quite a cool celebratory thing, I suppose. Is I was speaking to them, and I don't know if you've ever had this before, and you just said that you went and did that at schools, which is amazing. My want for life going forward, and I'm going to put out there to the universe on this podcast, is I would love to go into schools and encourage women specifically to really push and become whatever they want to be in life. If that's a businesswoman, fantastic. If it's something else, that's fine. But I was speaking to somebody at the Dorset Property Network who works in deprived schools as an assistant head teacher. And she says, Athena, we literally follow a curriculum where we have to teach them that you go to university, you get a mortgage, you pay that mortgage off, you get a job, a job that's just over broke. She's like, there is no aspirations there whatsoever to
Yeah.
encourage people, let alone women, to actually be more than that. And I thought that was so sad. And I
Yeah.
thought, you know what? And I felt in that moment, I don't know if you've ever had this before for yourself. I felt like that within me, something like ignited. And I'm like, that I
Yeah.
think is what my calling in life is to go and use this platform and platforms that I build to go and say to, let's say, women out there, because I think it's important,
Yeah.
go and be who you want to be. That's what I want to say to people. Like, if you want to be an astronaut, go be an astronaut. Like, but you have to have the self-belief within you, and you almost have to prove to them that it is possible. And
Yeah.
like you, I don't come from a huge amount. Like, my mum's a single mum and, worked her whole life. And, I don't know how I became who I am. And people are like, oh, where's your business spirit come from? And it's like, I
Yeah.
don't know. I've got no idea. It's just within you as a person. And
Spot.
yeah, and so I would love to, what you just said, I'd love to go into schools and to aspire people. So the fact you just said that in this conversation is perfect timing and really, really interesting. So fantastic that you did that. Are you going to do more of that going forward?
I am definitely. It's something that I think it opened my eyes in the same way it opened yours. And I know what you mean when you get that fire inside you where you think, I want to make this change. Because so I set my first business up when I was 14, and that's when I was in school and I went through a nightmare. I got bullied something ridiculous to the point where I then got homeschooled in year 11. And my dad was like, how are you going to get these GCSEs? I was thinking, I ain't got a clue. I was like, I really don't know. So that's when I set my business up in, I think I set it up in year 10 or year 9. And then I sold it in year 11.
What was
So
your business?
I
What was
sold
it?
this. It was called Spice Couture, horrific name, but it was, I used to drop ship dresses. We used to order them in from China, model them, sell them online, and then drop ship them direct from China and eBay. So at the time, no one was really doing that. Like, it wasn't really a thing. But that's when I was like, right, I'd figured it out because do you remember Celeb Boutique or House of CB?
Yes, definitely.
I used to be obsessed with these dresses, right? And I used to think they were like £120 a dress. I thought,
Yeah.
I can afford that. So I'd order the same style dress for like £20 from China, and then I'd sell it on. And I was like, this is a business. I can make money out of this. And that was just me piecing that together and thinking, any young girl could do that. Any young boy could do that. It's just having that opportunity and figuring it out. I think even in business, I did business at A level and I failed it. I remember sitting there and my teacher teaching me about business and me thinking, I've just sold a company right a year ago and I haven't got a clue what this man's saying to me, and he's never run a business in his life. So you've got people teaching that don't actually have a clue about business. They're just reading a textbook. So there's no inspiration there for people to go out and say, do you know what, I think I could do this, because there's no one there to inspire them.
Hmm. This is what I'm talking about. I know everybody has a lot on their plate at the moment, as we all do, but I'm seriously considering getting a really strong group of females together through
Yeah,
my network, and I'm thinking about really going to make a change altogether because
yeah,
I think that something needs to change in the schools. I really, really believe that because we never had it at school. I never had it at school. You know, we were taught French and all sorts of different things, which is very important, of course. But at the same time, we do need to know about even just the fundamentals of budgeting and
yeah,
things like that. And I talked to so many people about it. So the fact you just raised that on this podcast, I thought, you know, that really stems with something that happened to me last night. So I thought I would mention it. So if anybody out there wants to get involved in this movement of trying to educate and better schools in the right direction of entrepreneurship and business minds, then please, you know, get in touch with me because it's something I'm really passionate about.
yeah.
So let's see. I've put it out there to the universe. Let's see what happens.
You
And
do it.
law
I'll,
of attraction.
yeah, I'll help you. I think there needs to be more real stories out there, something that people can relate to so that they can believe that they can actually achieve
And
something.
also, I think age plays a big factor as well. Like, if I was their age, I'm just trying to think and put myself in their shoes. If
Yeah,
I was their age and I had someone who was, no disrespect or anything, I don't mean it disrespectfully, but someone who was, for example, our parents' age trying to show them, they might push back a bit and be like, well, it's,
yeah,
you know, it's easy for you and generations have changed and times have changed. And it's like, well, hold on, I'm 32. Like, I'm not that much older than you. And I kind of can talk on your level, you know, and that's how I would speak to them. I'd speak to them in a, you know, you give me everything you want, guys. Like, give me all your excuses. I'll take them and I'll put them right back on you.
that is a very good point. Though I think age is a big factor, and also showing your journey up to where you are now. Because when did you start? When did you start your first business?
Well, my actual business. So I was a landlord for 5 years. So I was one of those kind of accidental landlords that was in a full-time job, but then invested. It's like a side hustle, and then
Love
I
it.
was able to leave my full-time job to physically pay myself a wage and live 2 years ago. So yeah.
Insane. So there you go. It's like it's looking at your journey from where you started and that age. That's what's inspiring. I love that.
Yeah, it's mad. And my first ever business, actually, you know how you just mentioned yours, I mentioned it on my podcast with my mum. My first ever tiny little business was out of my backpack in year 11, where I sold Oreos and rainbow dust at schools,
That's
where
the
I used to buy it for like 20p from Costco, and I used to sell it for like 60, 80p from at schools, and that was my margin. And that, obviously, there was no proper business, or, you know, but that was me making money
yeah.
from kids at school.
I think that's how you judge when a kid's going to be an entrepreneur. If they're selling sweets in schools, then you're like, you're different. You're different.
Yeah, I got into trouble when I started selling chewing gum because I started whacking it under the tables. So I got in trouble about that, and then they took my business away. But, you know, up until that point, I was like, well, clearly if I buy it at this price, and
Yeah,
clearly if I sell it at this price, I keep, and that's like my pocket money that I
yeah,
pocket, which is the difference between the two. And because
yeah.
mum was driving me, like, and petrol, I had no expenses. So, and that's my
Amazing.
first mini little, very small little business out of a backpack.
No, I love that. Do you know, when going back to schools quickly, so my sister's actually doing, she's 10, she's going to hate me for getting that. And she's doing a challenge in school now, and it's the £5 profit challenge. And it's where they have to come up with a business idea where if they invest £5, they've got to then make 10. I thought, okay, what are you gonna do? And she was like, well, I'm thinking about bracelets. I was like, right, okay, why bracelets? And she went, well, I don't know, I could sell them for like £2, couldn't I? I was like, okay, what else would you think about? And then she said sweets and popcorn. And I was like, okay, well, where is the biggest demand? And she went, sweets. I was like, why? She said, because everyone wants sweets. I said, well, there's your business model. I was like, why are you going to start bracelets if everyone wants sweets? She was like, oh my gosh, this is it. So then she was in Costco yesterday with her mum, and she came back with them little burger sweets. And she was like, them little trolley ones. And she was like, I'm going to sell these in school. I thought, oh no. So this isn't the £5 profit challenge. She's starting something where she's going to get in trouble.
Oh my God, that's literally me. That's literally what I did. Oh my, I love that. Yes, tell her to do it. Tell her to go, you know, sell them all.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
to be made. She'll get in trouble now, watch. Someone won't pay the debts, and I'll get a call. I'll be like, ah.
No, I love that. And do you know what? The other thing I was just thinking is if I had to do the £5 challenge. So
Yeah,
I was almost thinking about personalization. So like the
yeah,
bracelet idea, I was thinking, like when I was her age, I used to love the beads on the bracelets, but I
yeah.
used to like to have my name. And so she could almost buy like all the beads, and then she could create personalized bracelets for everyone and make a margin out of that. So that's another idea.
She
So
actually, her name's Harper, and David Beckham, I think he put a copyright or something on the name Harper because he's got a daughter called Harper or
he
something.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. So she can never get her name on anything. So she will love that concept.
Well, there you go. And obviously, I could never get my name on anything.
Yeah.
Like, unless I went to like Greece, literally, I had no chance,
Yeah.
not a chance, as it were. So, yeah, I think that could work really well. But I think schools definitely is a massive thing. And also, like, you having all of your businesses as well. Like, how would you let me try and change this up a little bit. So, with all the businesses that you have, because hopefully listeners can relate to this as well, how do you almost dedicate enough time to like each of the businesses that you have, or make sure that everything is ticking over the way it should be when you almost look at it and have so much going on?
I think you can only really designate time when you've got a team. I think if I didn't have a team, I wouldn't be able to then divert my focus onto everything. And I have messed up in the past as well with things like this. So when I look back to gym law, so I moved into our offices in 2021. Now, moved into the office and everyone was like, what are you doing? Like, you sure you can do this? The first month was when all my stock was stuck at customs and we'd invested every penny that we had into that stock. But I got the first month of my rent for free. So I remember thinking, I need to do something here to obviously fix this business. So I've got time to obviously still run it. Now, that's when I launched the agency. But the agency kicked off really, really fast, which meant when the stock then arrived for gym law, I'd built a team of 2 on the agency, but I didn't really know how to then go back to gym law to then pick that back up. So it took me a while to really generate thinking the ideas to think, how am I going to pick this brand back up so that that runs? Because I'd split my focus and I'd split it too quickly, and I'd put all my eggs in one basket of desperation to make sure I could pay them bills. So I think once you build a team, that's when you can say, right, okay, have I got the time to go and set up a new business? Can I look at investing with someone else? Is there a partnership that I can then join up with someone else where you're in business with them and they can go off and run something else as well? I think you've really got to be clever with it to make it work.
Interesting. That's fascinating. And I think, when you're trying to start a business, and I sort of think to myself about like my own shoes and listeners' shoes, sometimes it's quite difficult because you look at the cash flow as well and you think to yourself, okay, well, can I physically afford to invest in actually taking on a member of the team? Or do I need to do all of these things at once? And that's always I have this conversation all the time. It is such a hard balancing act between, look, we know we need to invest to make money. We know that. But at the same time, you need to be able to pay bills and you need to keep the cash flow going. So how did you find that at the beginning when you were trying to build your business, but not knowing whether to actually employ people or not employ people? How was that for you?
So with gym law, that was, if I look at my businesses, gym law I had to invest money into. Aventus I didn't. So the moment I literally had 4 weeks to pay that rent, the first 2 weeks I applied for a job on Indeed and then I pitched my agency and I ended up getting the client, and the client was 2.5 grand a month. So it was for 3 months, and I thought, right, okay, that is the cash flow I've got for 3 months from that client. So I hired straight away. So I took a girl on, and she originally worked in a bank. She quit her job, she came on with me full time, and she just acted as a social media manager. So she catered for that client, and it left me with, I think I had like £1,000 left over, but then I had to put like £720 of that onto the rent. So I literally had like £200 left. So it was just a domino effect. I thought, right, I'll hire instantly and then I can focus on the sales of the business. And then I also have the time to work alongside the team as well to ensure they're doing everything that they need to be doing. So I had a social media manager and freelancers to ensure that if I didn't have someone on the books and I lost a client, it was okay because it still worked. So yeah.
Wow. And do you know what? Everyone's story is so unique. Like your story is your story. That's true to you, and someone else's story is theirs, as it were. And
Yeah.
I think the main thing I would say, because I get asked this question quite a lot, I think the main thing I would say from listening to you is you have to do what's right for you and what's right for your business, and what's right for someone doesn't need to be right for somebody else. Everyone is their own person. Everyone has their own business. So I always think that invest when is the right time to invest, but
Yeah.
don't be scared to invest. Don't hold on to the money for dear life. I genuinely believe, and it's the way that I've always done business and it's always done well for me, is if you invest, you make more money. You know,
Yeah. 100%.
that's the way I've always seen things. And for me, I'm now venturing out a little bit in my little world of business. And I've done my bit and built the businesses and things, but now is the time where I'm either very tired of doing everything, or I
Yeah.
want to go and do more. I want to go and venture out and I want to do new things. So I'm actually in the process now of thinking to myself, okay, well, how do I actually want to expand this?
Yeah.
What do I want to do? And one thing, for example, I always think to myself is when I'm going to be looking to hire, I
Yeah.
always say to myself, okay, Athena, what is your weakest points?
Yeah.
What are the things you don't enjoy? What are the things that are not your skill set that you don't really want to do? Or the things that you think are really important
Yeah.
that really need to push forward that you don't necessarily have the time for?
Yeah.
And that's where my brain instantly goes to. So then you know the right places to invest
Yeah.
and to get the
Definitely.
right team on board. So
Yeah.
those are the questions to ask yourself if you're going to hire people, as it were. But clearly it's been amazing for you.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I have been through a rocky journey with the hiring process. I have had amazing employees. I have had nightmare employees. I have had stories with employees which I genuinely would never have expected. I've had people trying to take the business. I've had all sorts. So it hasn't been easy, and I think that is also one of the parts of growing a business that it is scary to invest in the beginning because you can look at your weakest points, but you also don't necessarily know if that person's going to come in is going to be able to fix that weakest point because it's your weakest point and you don't know any better. So I think that can be difficult, and also training and managing a team can be really difficult. But the best part about these businesses now is that in a sense I don't need to hire until I've got clients on board, or with like assisted sales that isn't really an investment because you can use an investor to put the funds up as well. So in a sense, there's no money down.
That's a really good point. Again, really good point, and it's dependent on the business that you actually
Yeah,
have, with the timing of when is the right time to invest.
yeah,
Absolutely. And of course, at the moment I'm using, just so that if listeners are trying to start their businesses, companies that I'm using at the moment also is you don't really have to always employ someone.
yeah,
They can also be non-contractual. So things like people per hour, Fiverr, even just like self-employed people that you're like, do you want to do a little bit of contracting work for me? There's also those opportunities as well. So always know that there are other ways that you can get people to help you without needing to be like in full-time employment as well. So there's lots of ideas and lots of options. Um,
definitely,
Abby,
definitely.
it's been amazing talking to you. Like, I feel like what I've loved about our conversation, I hope the listeners do, is that we've sort of done this wonderful little roller coaster of a journey talking about assisted sales and property and schools. And like, it's been a real nice vibe, I feel, where this is what a natural conversation would do as if we were at dinner together and
Definitely.
we would just flow through the differences, which I really like. In true fashion and style, because it's always the fun bit, do you mind kind of just briefly talking to us about something like a property mishap, or we'll call it a property disaster that might have happened to you either recently or in the past, and a bit of a story that you could share with us just before you head off?
Okay, I'm going to think of probably, there's been a few. There's been a few. Um, I had one before as well in my head where I thought that was something I can share, but I don't think I can share it just yet. Okay, so if I go from this property, probably the big, I need to pick one. I do. I genuinely need to pick one. So the bathroom at this moment in time, no, I don't even know if that's the best one to take. No, okay, we'll do the bathroom. So
I love this. I love it's not just me. I love the fact that even guests who come on are like, okay, hold on.
I'm sat here thinking, what's worse? I had my windows delivered to the wrong house, and they were left at someone's house, and they'd started working on this house that wasn't mine. So
What?
that is a story which I don't really think I can explain just yet, because it was nearly the biggest court case ever. Because
Really?
they started working on someone else's renovation and started trying to take their windows out because the door was open.
No way.
So that was one.
Oh
Um,
dear.
but the bathroom at the moment, this isn't even a funny story. This is just what happened last night. So my bathroom's getting tiled tomorrow, and my spark needs to still wire in my mirror. And he hasn't done that, so he made me wait last night until 8 o'clock. Then said, "Abs, just leave the key out. I'm going to have my dinner." I thought, is this guy like joking? Is he trying to have me off? So then in the morning, I messaged him, was like, "Did you go out?" And he was like, "Yeah, I went out, but couldn't get in because didn't have a key." So I've got a ring doorbell. I can see that you've not been out. Stop. So he didn't come out. Oh no, this is a funny story as well, actually. See, there's three now. I'll have to tell you this one before I go. One day I was in Dubai and it was midnight here, so 4 o'clock in the morning. No, midnight in Dubai, 4 o'clock in the morning here. My doorbell goes off and I'm like, oh my gosh, who's at my house? I look and like a van's pulled up outside to try and take stuff out my skip. But before he's tried the skip, he's gone and tried the front door. So I seen it straight away, put the sirens on from the ring. He literally jumped out his skin, ran to the van, took everything out, put it back, and then left. And then the night
Wow.
after, the same thing happened. And I was like, oh my gosh, they're there again. So I set the sirens off. But it was like 2 o'clock in the morning in the UK at this point. And I looked, I was panicking, trying to go back, see the door was shut. And it was a cat. It was a cat sat on the skip. I thought my neighbours are going to hate me.
Oh my goodness. So was he trying to take almost like scraps to sell, do you think, from the skip?
Yeah, so we've had it loads where they come and they take the scrap, and I'm like, okay, that's fine, take stuff out the skip. But it's the first time I've seen someone physically go up and try the door. And like, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Why are you trying my door?
Oh wow. Gosh, it's a good job you had your Ring doorbell.
Oh, honestly, since that, like, I would never have a property now without one. I think they're so worth it.
Yeah. Shout out to Ring doorbell. There you go.
They might sponsor this.
I was going to say, if you'd like to sponsor us, Ring doorbell, that would be wonderful. Thank you. No, I do you know what? We've got them at all our service accommodation apartments, and it works a treat. It really,
Yeah.
really does. I did not know that you could do a siren noise, by the way. I need to look into that.
Oh, you can do a siren. I'll ask my dad actually because he literally sent me a list and was like, "You need all of this." My house is that secure. You think it was like Buckingham Palace. He told me yesterday, he went, "You need a sensor on this back window." I said, "Dad, I've got a sensor on every single window." I was like, "What are you setting me up for?"
Oh, I love that. I don't have any of that in my house. I really should get some.
Honestly, no, they are good though. The siren's clever as well, because it's loud though.
Yeah, but that's a good thing. That's what it's meant to be. Love that. What do you know what? What a fantastic property disaster to finish on. I love that because whenever I ask people about this, the stuff that comes out is just insane. It really is. Um,
There's been all sorts. There genuinely has. I think you could actually do a whole podcast just on property disasters, just
Do you know
people.
what? I might actually do that. I might just put together all of the property disasters and be like, right, recap, property disasters. I genuinely might put that together. So watch this space. I think a good
Literally.
one. Abby, I could talk to you all day. Like literally, I really, really could, and it's a pleasure to have you on. Like, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. I really appreciate it. If people want to carry on the conversation with you or they want to know more about what you're doing, or is this a sales or even in terms of the gym stuff and the other brands, social media, how can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram, so Abigail Clarke, LinkedIn, the same, and YouTube as well. But my DMs are always open for anyone that needs any advice. So send me a voice note. I am a voice noter. But no, thank you as well. Like I honestly, I appreciate this so much, and I could speak to you for hours as well.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. And if you want to find me, I'm Athena Dobson _official. We are Girls in Property Pod on Instagram. And if you want to email, we're girlsinpropertypod@gmail.com. As of the moment I'm recording this and the Monday episode going out, there are 4 tickets left to the Girls in Property retreat. It will be a sellout event. So genuinely, I can't put any more tickets on. I've really tried. They won't let me. So once the 4 tickets are gone, it will automatically just tell you on the website that there are no more tickets left. So if you do want to come, you don't have your ticket left, please go and grab the last 4. Thank you so much. Thank you, Abby. Have a wonderful day, and yeah, enjoy your week. And listeners, if you want to get in touch, just feel free to reach out. Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.